Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. I would say chances are, unless you're a pro player or an aspiring pro, and really even then it can still apply, you are probably playing Call of Duty for fun. And sure, going off with the M4A1 or the MP5 or the usual on-meta weapons is all fine and dandy, right? It is always a good time when you're on top of the leaderboards. But what about those weapons that you know might not be the best in the game, but are an absolute blast to use? Well, today we're throwing them into the spotlight as we break down 5 of the most fun class setups to run as of right now. But before we jump into that, if you are new here, I am always covering the latest Call of Duty news and intel, best class setups, and all sorts of stuff like that. So feel free to subscribe with your notifications turned on. And of course, if you enjoy the video at any point, let me know by dropping a like on it. Now, like I said, today's setups are all about the weapons that I find to be the most fun to use. And I'll go right ahead and say it. Some of these are not top competitors, because frankly, if anything, using the M4 and the MP5 over and over and over again honestly gets pretty boring to me, and I do like to branch out and see what else I enjoy using. And these 5 setups today definitely stand out to me the most. So the first class we're going to be looking into is based around the MK2 Carbine. Now, when I first started out with this weapon, I was absolutely dreading it. I thought it was going to be terrible, but lo and behold, this is actually now one of my favorites because it's just so fun to use as an aggressive sniper shotgun-like hybrid. Now, what I mean by that is that yes, this is a marksman rifle, obviously, so it has a decent range, its power is up there, more so when you are hitting those chest and headshots. However, you can also build this weapon out to be very agile and fast too, so it is also great for running around with. And when you are constantly picking people off in those CQC engagements with a weapon like this, it really starts to feel like you are using a shotgun in the sense that its damage is just really good when you are able to stay on target consistently. Ironically, long range is where I find myself using this weapon the least because it can tend to get more hit markers at those pretty extreme distances. And with my preferred attachment setup for it, it really just makes more sense to play on its pros and use it as an aggressive sniper. So getting into the class setup itself, my go-to attachment setup for most maps is going to be the FSS 24-inch factory barrel, and this is going to increase the damage range, the recoil control, and also the bullet velocity, all of which are pretty important areas to look into when you're really trying to up the weapon's overall efficiency. I then use the tack laser, as this is going to help with the stability of the weapon when aiming down sights, but it is also going to increase the ADS speed as well, and getting those sights up as fast as possible is a huge deal with a weapon like this. Then I've got the VLK 3x optic scope on there, and this really just all comes down to preference, and I will note, I really only use this when I plan on playing those larger maps, like those that are in Ground War or in the 10v10 playlist. And for those smaller maps like say Shoot House or Shipment or Hackney Yard, I'll actually swap out that optic sight for the sleight of hand weapon perk instead. Anyways, I've also got the FSS MK2 Sport comb stock, as this also increases the aim down sight speed. And lastly, we've got the stapled grip tape as well, and you guys already know the deal with this one, you've got to take advantage of those speed increases. So, as I mentioned earlier, this setup really allows you to play more aggressive with the MK2 and have not only a great ADS speed, but also a pretty solid range as well, making this weapon very versatile when it comes down to it. Moving on though, let's jump into the assault rifle category now to take a look at what has recently become one of my favorite rifles to use in the game, and that is none other than the SCAR. Now, the SCAR got a slight buff a few updates back that I think really made it a lot more effective, as the recoil was reduced ever so slightly. Now, don't get me wrong, the SCAR is slow, the SCAR has next to no ammo capacity, and in general, it doesn't really seem like the most appealing weapon to use. But, let me tell you right now, this thing hits like a truck, and it's consistently like a 3 to 4 shot kill at most ranges, and when you add some headshots into the mix, that TTK gets even better. To be honest, tap firing and even just burst firing over holding down the trigger consistently can sometimes be the best option in those long-range fights, simply to ensure you're hitting your shots. But ultimately, with my preferred setup on the SCAR, it can really hold its own in pretty much every single kind of engagement. So for starters here, I am using the monolithic suppressor just to give me that added range, and in all reality, that's kind of a counter to some of the later attachments I end up using. Also, it does add that sound suppression, which is a pretty nice bonus too. I've also got the Forge Tac CQC Pro Barrel on there, and that ends up increasing your mobility some, and that's going to be a pretty big help in the end. Then I've got the FTAC collapsible stock for its similar mobility increases, and I think you probably are starting to see where exactly I'm going with this setup. Mobility is really the main focus here. However, you can't just solely focus on that, Control is also pretty important too, and you lose quite a bit of it with those previous attachments. So that's why I choose to run the Commando foregrip as an underbarrel. And finally, I've got the stippled grip tape as well to once again help with that overall speed. Now, this setup on the Scar is very SMG-like in the sense that you are primarily focused on that speed. And that means your control and your range aren't really going to be super insane or anything like that. But because this is the Scar and it's a tank of a weapon as is, you can still do well in those medium and long range fights when you can control your aim. And this is definitely one of my favorite setups to run around with right now. But continuing on, let's shift gears once more and jump into our third class setup for today, which focuses on the Kar 98K. Now at first, I thought this thing was an absolute hit marker machine and just slow and not a very fun weapon to use. But then, much like the MK2, I really tried to change how I approached this weapon and made it fit more into my playstyle, and that's obviously based around those close and medium range fights. So once again here, my focus was speed and power, a little Jeremy Clarkson-esque, if you will. So really, to bring out the true power of the car, I'm using the Syngard Arms 27.6-inch barrel, which offers the largest increases to the range, control, and bullet velocity. I've also got the tack laser on there for the same reasons as on the MK2. I've actually got the sniper scope optic because this is what I felt my aim was the most precise with in this case. I'll tell you what, I don't like the iron sights whatsoever on the car, so this was honestly a huge upgrade in that aspect. Then following that, I've got the F-Tac Sport comb stock for the ADS speed increase, and finally I've got the stippled grip tape yet again. So this setup not only allows the car to excel slightly more in those longer range fights, but you can also play a lot more aggressive with it too and run around, do some rushing, and find quite a bit of success while doing so. Then setup number 4 for today is going to focus on the 50GS, aka the iconic Desert Eagle, as this pistol is a powerhouse in and of itself. It is a 2 to 3 shot kill at most ranges, and it's also a 1 shot to the head. And those one-shot headshots are some of the most satisfying things to run into in game, especially when you hit them back to back to back. Now this setup is actually the exact same setup that we featured in yesterday's pistol video, and it consists of the monolithic suppressor for extra range, the forged tack enforcer barrel for extra range, control, and bullet velocity, the lightweight trigger for an increased fire rate, the stippled grip tape once more, and also sleight of hand so I can reload a bit quicker. And with this setup, quite frankly, you can use this as a primary if your aim is good enough, and do just fine with it because it does have the ability to be so lethal with the right player controlling it. I mean, truth be told, the power on this thing speaks for itself. Then, to round things out, the final class we're looking at today features the Bison SMG, which is by far my favorite SMG for rushing around and just playing ultra aggressive. This thing has a huge magazine and one of the best mobility stats out of all the weapons we have in the game, making it a rusher's best friend. So my go-to setup here starts with the monolithic suppressor. However, you can also use the compensator instead for the recoil control if you find yourself missing too many shots or just not feeling super comfortable with the recoil it has with that suppressor equipped. Then I've got the 8.7-inch steel barrel to increase the range and control, the tack laser for all the same reasons as before, the no stock option to really increase that mobility to a whole new level. And I mean, no one probably saw this next one coming, but believe it or not, I've actually got the stippled grip tape on this setup too, because, well, you honestly can't go wrong with it. So, close range, this weapon completely shreds, and you can push teams like no tomorrow. I mean, you got 64 rounds in a mag to just wreak havoc with, and in the right situation, this weapon dominates all others. Sure, the MP5 is probably the better SMG in a competitive nature, but as far as fun factor goes, to me, the Bison outclasses all other SMGs by a mile. Anyways, with all of that being said, those are effectively the most fun setups that I've found here in Modern Warfare, and that is going to wrap things up for today. Definitely drop me a comment down below with your favorite setups as of right now, and we'll see, I might have to try a few of them out in some future videos. If you guys enjoyed this video, let me know by dropping a like on it, and of course, if you're new here and you want to stay up to date with the latest Call of Duty news and intel, updates and leaks, and pretty much everything else in between, feel free to subscribe with your notifications turned on, that way you'll always know when I post a new video. As always, if you want to check out any of my partners, be sure to use code IMMORTAL on all Scuff, G Fuel, Control Freak, and Respawn products. Also, I am getting a lot more into streaming as of lately, so if you want to follow my Twitch, that and all of those other links can be found down in the description below. Once again, thanks so much for tuning in, and until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.